In October 2010, the FBI was getting very close to raiding that base, to the point where Mark Headley told me that they had asked him, they figured Miscavige would run for Burbank, to where Tom Cruise has his planes. And so they literally recorded the tail numbers on Tom Cruise's planes so they would have that.
Please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. And we can all name him.
He's an absolute ruler. He's an absolute ruler. He runs the entire organization. Nothing happens without his say-so. And then, so you would ask him about his father. His father, Ron Miscavige, was on the base with him. And eventually he just couldn't take it anymore. He just was sick and tired of it. And he was married to a younger woman, and they decided to make an escape.
An escape?
Yeah, to escape the base in Southern California. And one of my favorite details, I talked about this, it's just crazy. They didn't just want to leave everything. They wanted some of their possessions. And so they came up with this idea that they were going to mail birthday presents to, I think, her mom. And oh, she's going to be 75. We're going to send her 75 gifts. It's a fun thing to do. And they were actually mailing out their own possessions to her so they would have some things.
What is the base?
I'll get to that. Including L. Ron Hubbard books.
Oh, because they wanted to smuggle it out.
So, in other words, Ron Miscavige wanted to escape from the base and get out from under his son's, rulership. But he was still a Scientologist. He still believed in L. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So they were smuggling out L. Ron Hubbard books because they couldn't imagine living without them. They wanted to escape the base. Anyway, it's just so sad.
What is the base like?
Okay, so you know about the Big Blue former hospital in downtown Los Angeles. That's right. Called PAC Base, Pacific Area Command. 90 miles east of that, in San Jacinto, California, they had taken over this resort called Gilman Hot Springs in 1979, I think, with the idea that it would be where Hubbard could live in some seclusion. But then he took off and never ended up living there. So that became their international management base. It's got like 400 or 500 acres. It's got all these buildings to it. That's where the Headleys were for many, many years. Mike Rinder spent a lot of time out there. And eventually,
we'll come back to the Headleys.
In 2004, Miscavige was so paranoid about his own people, he created a prison for them called the Hole. The Hole started at the Int Base or Gold Base in January 2004. There's still some version of it today. I mean, there's still top executives that have been basically disappeared that will never leave that base, that David had for some reason decided that they were a liability. But, Mike Rinder spent a couple of years in the Hole there.
I had asked Mark about this, and it was hard for even him to answer. He's been covering this forever because it's so strange. But how do they have a private prison and that itself is not grounds for the feds to come in and say this is false imprisonment, completely illegal? And what Mark was saying is that, well, people can technically leave if they want to. And I'm like, can they though?
No, it's the problem is the risk for law enforcement is that there's no question, especially in that period. And the FBI did consider it. There was an investigation. This is what Lawrence writes. One of the things he revealed when he came out with this story about Paul Haggis in the New Yorker in
great director.
2011, he revealed that there was an FBI investigation. In fact, in October 2010, the FBI was getting very close to raiding that base, to the point where Mark Headley told me that they had asked him, they figured Miscavige would run for Burbank, to where Tom Cruise has his planes. And so they literally recorded the tail numbers on Tom Cruise's planes so they would have that. I talked to another ex-Scientologist, Matt Pesh, who told me that they had asked him, will you come in the vans with us when we drive on so that there's somebody with us that knows where everything is? And Matt said, I'm ready to go. That's how close they were to raiding that base in October 2010. They did not do so. The risk here, here's the risk, Julian. The risk is they go on there, they open the door, there's all these people in there that have been prisoners for years. Come on out, you're free. The risk is they say, oh no, we're not prisoners. We're fine where we are. And then you're screwed if you're law enforcement. You are screwed. And so that's why they ultimately have a hard time doing it, is that, as you know, Mike Rinder will tell you, the bars were inside the head. It wasn't the locked door that was keeping them in. So
And it was locked.
yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. They were there. They have no freedom. They had no freedom. The people that were in the hole. I think they have a little more freedom today. I think that whole base has been de-emphasized because it became so close to being raided. Miscavige moved the studios out to a new studio in L.A. on Sunset Boulevard. He's moved much more stuff to Florida now. That base is much less important today than it used to be. And I think it's because he knew he was vulnerable there to an FBI raid.
What made that guy, you mentioned Matt Pesh, who was the Scientologist who told you about them checking the planes and knowing what was going on. What eventually made him leave Scientology?
Well, Mark Headley was the one who told me about the plane numbers. Matt Pesh was the one who told me that they had asked him if he would go on the van with them if they raided the base, and he said yes. Matt is married to Amy Scobie, and she's also a fascinating figure. They met in Scientology. Amy was at the very top. She wrote a book called At the Top or something. Great story about how what she saw in Scientology. All these people have incredible stories where they were in the Sea organization. They were treated so badly over so many years, and that something finally woke them up. Each one of them has a different story about what it was where they finally like, why am I wasting my life here? And then they have to get out, and getting out is not easy. And every single, from Mike Rinder to Matt Pesh to Amy Scobie to Mark Headley to Claire Headley, they all have a fascinating story of what finally woke them up, and then how do you get out? When Scientology, they literally have something they call the blow drill. Mark's great at telling this story, where if somebody left the base, they had this protocol that they would follow to get that person back, and they'd
blow them.
No, that's.
Sorry,
I know. That's the play on words. I know. No, they've blown the base, and now they go into the blow drill to find that person, track them down, bring them back. I talked to one guy. He had escaped 5 separate times, and each time they would find him, they'd come back and they'd intimidate the hell out of him and said, "You can't leave this way. You need to come back and route out properly." It's called
route out.
And they'd talk him into it, and he'd come back, and then he'd be like, "What am I doing?" Finally, the 5th time, he's like, "No." And he realized there was nothing they could do. It's just, like I said, the mental influence is so strong for these people.
But is it also because, like, these people trying to leave, they've been inside, so I would imagine many of them have seen fellow Scientologists when they tried or did leave, and the pressure that was put on them vis-a-vis things like, you know, being watched on their street, private investigators who are armed up, and are they worried about that more than like, oh, these guys are going to shoot me right here?
Right. They don't, Scientology doesn't kill people outright. They ruin
Allegedly.
lives. They ruin lives.
Yeah.
I mean, L. Ron Hubbard Jr. once said of his dad that my dad isn't going to kill you. What he wants is to see you out of a job, out of your house, in a gutter, crying somewhere. That's
you need him.
That's what he wants. He wants to see you in that pitiful state. And that was, he said that in the 70s, and that's still what the program Scientology follows today. They like to destroy people. Yeah, they don't just shoot people.
God, that's it. Like there are the sick people in this world who don't get off on feeling good. They get off on inflicting pain. And that's exactly, to a T, who L. Ron Hubbard obviously was.
Well, especially David Miscavige. I mean, that's the people who know him know that he really, the first thing he wants to know when he gets up in the morning is, okay, who blew? Who's gone today? And now we got to go get them. That's the first thing he wanted to know every morning is who's left. Yeah.
What a sick guy.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.